right, Eric, talk to us a little bit about the business model. You're getting right into just kind of what you guys do exactly in the restaurant space, whether you own and operate some of these restaurants or how all that works.
Good question, actually. No, we do not operate in at a restaurant. Consider us like more like a real estate agent. So we're the middleman between buyers and sellers. And so we do independent, we do franchises, but think about us like a real estate agent for the food service industry. That's really what our specialty is. So we do not get into ownership or anything like that. We specialize in facilitating the transfer of the assets.
Awesome. Very cool. And you've been in this a long time. So for me, I'm obviously an emerging brand, as they call it, right? If you want to use some cliche terms, but just getting into the franchise space. I've never been a franchisee, never been a franchisor. So for those looking at this space, just the franchise space in general, kind of what's your knowledge and advice around folks, whether that's a franchisee or a franchisor, about what we just need to know about franchising in general as we, dive 2 feet in here?
I guess if I can sum it up for both, and one is do your homework.
Yeah.
There is so much information. One of the value of buying in a franchise model is there's so much information available to you to make your decision.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to make money, right? Everybody want to buy a franchise. The biggest thing, especially on the franchisee side, people, we deal with food businesses, right? People will call and say, hey, I just want to buy a McDonald's.
Right.
Like, okay, why would you want to buy a McDonald's? Because they make a lot of money, they never go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
That is the wrong motivation.
Yeah.
You have to believe in the model and like it, because you're going to have to spend time there. The absentee model is another kind of a myth, I think, in general in business now that we talked about a lot in different ways. But I think you have to really believe and be passionate. When I say passionate about the business, not follow your passion, right? Because that's different. But you have to be proud of the business, right? You're going to wear your shirt of your company shirt. You're going to be out and go grocery shopping. You're going to go out to your kids' school. You're going to wear branded apparels of your business and be sharing that with your community. That's what it should be for you. If it's not, then maybe it's not the right fit for you. And as a franchisor, I'll tell you this. We started, we didn't start when we started growing and we need additional people. Franchising was not our first thing that we thought about. Because we're, like I told you, we're really similar to realtors. So, hey, let's hire agents, but real estate type agents, right? Called business brokers. So I was like, okay, but we're specialized. So we have to train them. It's not like they can just come from selling houses to come over there.
Right.
Well, what happened is we trained guys and girls and they say, hey, this is not for me. So I spent tremendous amount of time training people to know that they would be leaving. And I was like, well, that's not working for us.
Right.
Right. It's like people want to test drive the car, right, and not buying it. Yeah. That's what franchising, people make a commitment. They have to believe in the model. They have to believe in themselves and they believe in the system. So it was the right fit for us because that's the commitment I wanted. I want somebody who's going to commit to this long term. So when you look at franchising, make sure it is the right model for what you're trying to accomplish, because there's give and take, right? You're a franchisor yourself, that there's give and take, that you can influence the business, but you really, at the end of the day, control every aspect of their business.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because in the corporate world, which is where I come from, there's always this teetering back and forth and analytics that companies try to get into around the cost of a sale. Because to your point, all the time, you're not only your sales reps that you've got out on the front lines trying to sell the product or service, but also the solution architects, all the people that support them, and the whole organization's involved in a sale at some level. And organizations are always trying to figure out what the cost of the sale actually is. Because you may spend, I come from tech sales. We could spend a week solutioning and then get a PO the next week and be off and running. Or it could be a 6, 12, 18-month process from first engagement all the way through to getting a PO. And even then, you still don't have the cash in hand, right? It's just a purchase order for a project or program that may be, coming online in another month or so. And so how do you go through this? A little bit off topic, Eric, but how do you as an organization factor in everybody's time that was involved in that sale? And what's even worse is when you don't get the sale, you spend 12 to 18 months in hundreds of hours of everybody's time and you don't get any money for it. So to your point about franchising, when people, put down deposit on a franchise fee or whatever that is. There's a commitment there, not only that they are actually committed to doing this, but there's a financial reception of that on your side immediately, right? From that, at least your time has been compensated. Now, that's not to say that we don't, as franchisors go through a lot of back and forth with potential candidates, and we've got a cost to sale there and so on and so forth. It's a little different, but take us back to the early years, Eric. What drew you to the restaurant space in general? How did you get into it? And, how did you stumble upon what you do today?
Well, referring about to your corporate days, I was in banking and finance in my corporate days as well, in Big Five accounting, and I ran into a gentleman that was a restaurant broker in a town in South Carolina, and we kept friend over the years, and he brought me some restaurant for when I was in banking, that I wanted to finance. So we did some of these deals, and then as I grew less and less fond of the corporate environment, my wife encouraged me to be an entrepreneur, and he just kind of said, you should become a restaurant broker. So I started thinking about it. And the other thing, start talking to the business brokerage industry in general. Nobody wanted to do restaurant. It was like the stepchild of the business. Oh, that's too much work. They're too much. Like, oh, that's good. Because I don't know any better. So I'm like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So we became a niche before niches were actually the in thing. Now it's getting in. People say you have to be specialized, but before it was not. I mean, 20 years ago, there was no such thing, but I specialized from day one, never swayed from it. So that's kind of how we got into the specialization of restaurant.
Got it. From the franchisor side, so this is a selfish interest of mine, Eric, but we were talking pre-roll about just all the resources available to franchisors, consultants, and firms that can come in and partner with you and help drive, processes and sales and get you franchisee leads and all of that stuff. And I know you mentioned you've done this organically for many years, and you've done it kind of at a slow pace by decision there. What are some of your favorite places to advertise your business, to capture leads for folks that may be interested in becoming a franchisee for your organization? Talk to us a little bit about just where you find good candidates, or just candidates in general. Maybe they're not good.
Sure. No, and that's the $1 million question, Davis. I mean, that is the $1 million question. Everybody, whether you're an emerging franchisor with zero unit in your system, or a franchisor that has thousands and thousands of units, that is the question that everybody's looking the answer, because it keeps changing. Number one, but I think the especially if you're like, I would say 0 to 50. I mean, you're really looking at, to me, it's people that have experienced your brand.
Yeah.
Previous customers, people that even maybe not bought from you, but understood the brand. People that are along a parallel. Maybe if you're in the moving business, for instance, or junk removing business, what are the other parallels that are maybe somebody does construction, cleanups, which is a lot harder maybe than doing yard cleanup. I mean, so you have to find that parallel that your system will make them better.
Yeah.
In a somewhat easier. I mean, that's a subjective term. Right.
Sure.
I don't know that screaming on every rooftop, because when you start, I would start regional. I mean, a lot of brands want to go, and we're going to go nationals right away. Mm-hmm. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a year with no guarantee of a single franchise.
Yeah.
That is very risky. The statistics are pretty staggering against emerging franchise. So you have to be wise with your money. So I would start with my own buyers, friends, families, people of experience, previous customers, future customers, parallel, that are maybe making sense, that will understand the story. Like restaurant owners for us are a good person that maybe they sell their restaurant and they are wanting to do something simpler because they've been 30 years in the business. They don't want to be, having the hours. So for us, I can tell you that what we say right now is you can be in the restaurant business with banker's hours.
Yeah. Right.
That's kind of like, oh, I get that. So you do, I don't know, nights and weekends, no nights and weekends.
Yeah.
People in the restaurant industry like that. They understand what we do. So find that connection with your industry.
Yeah.
And invite them to listen to your story and see if that's a good fit.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper than throw big time with all sorts of expensive things.
Yeah, I love the suggestion about past customers. Somebody mentioned that the other day, and I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that because my brain was like, coming from a sales background, you always think outbound, like what can I do to drive outbound activity and engagement? And so, for me, obviously, the social media platforms are great. But even then, like you start to get a little bit overwhelmed because you don't really know what the buyer profile looks like of a franchisee candidate until you start to get some in the house. And even then, from folks I've talked to, really, if you look at all of their franchisees, I mean, there might be some trends here and there, but like they come from all different types of backgrounds, corporate, other franchisees, they may be young guys just coming out of school, whatever the case may be. So I see that as a little bit overwhelming, but a more strategic and what seems like a more intelligent approach is reaching out to your past customers, because that list is, that's a more manageable list, I guess, and they've experienced your brand, to your point. Yeah, for a more pointed question there, Eric, what is your method of engagement if you go that route and reach out to past customers? Is it just starting with email? Do you phone call, text? Do you hit them up on their favorite social media platform, like a Facebook, a LinkedIn? I mean, how does that work for you?
Good question. What we do typically is we start with email.
Yeah.
And we'll do an email. And sometimes it's just kind of a point of reference about, did you know, we're franchising. Most of those customers don't even know they can actually buy into the system.
Right.
So it's awareness. And then we have a series of emails and videos that we send. And then we will ask them to, react back, whether it's reply back to the email, whether it's to schedule a time. And then, then of course we engage with a phone conversation very rapidly once we get some sort of interest. But our email has been a very successful method for us, more than through the social media or LinkedIn. I'm sure for those of you listening, I mean, LinkedIn used to be a great tool, but I mean, it's like 9 out of 10, requests you're getting now. Somebody try to pitch you something and it's automated AI system. And it's a little disappointing where there's still true people that reach out, but you have to sift through a lot of the AI stuff before you get to that right person.
Totally. And to that point, just with all of the outlets available to folks, obviously some people have a preference towards one platform over the other, but at the business level with what you guys are doing at We Sell Restaurants and branding, I mean, because you've been in the business so long, I'm going to guess, 20 years ago, your advertising and branding probably existed in a lot different formats and in a lot different places than it might today, right? You might have been doing TV ads, radio, traditional print media. Today, obviously, we can do a lot on social media. But talk to us a little bit about just how you guys are advertising just for your brand, not necessarily bringing franchisees in, but how does the world know about you guys and what you're doing? What are your favorite avenues to advertise?
Well, we were fortunate to we're early adopters in website and web technology 20 years ago.
Okay.
Nowadays, it's a little different because there's so much new stuff, so rapid. You have to be a little bit more careful that just jumping in the newest thing, Yeah. So we were fortunate to start collecting emails over 20 years ago. So email has been a very, very steady for us, that our customers know us and they are definitely accustomed to our emails and respond to them. We have a huge open click rate on our emails. We do experiment with everything. I think you got to constantly try. Like we did try social media. We did try LinkedIn. We do have a very strong organic search. If you search restaurant for sale on Google, We Sell Restaurant organically come in the top 3.
Yeah.
So we did try pay-per-clicks. We try a little bit of everything. So I think, and then at some point pay-per-click works, then it dies. So that's one thing that I would say, if you have to be proactive in your marketing approach. Do not just be, oh, well, direct mail works. I mean, some of my franchisees actually still do direct mail postcards to restaurant owners, and they get a phenomenal response.
Wow.
Yeah, believe it or not. I mean, yeah, you'll be shocked, right? Because I'm like, like you said, 20 years ago, you just put an ad in the newspaper.
Yeah.
That would not be a good solution anymore. But so you have to try. And in certain markets, they'll do a postcard because this other franchisee had success. They get zero response. So you have to monitor. One thing we do well our team, not me personally, I'm not going to take credit. I want to give credit to our team, but we measure all our marketing initiatives. We quantify them.
Yeah.
So if you can quantify your marketing initiative, which is different than branding, that's why marketing and branding are two different initiatives. And you need to measure. And if you see a drop, is it still worth going? Or you have to start looking at tweaking or looking at different channels to do your marketing.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said for, kind of quote unquote old school methods of advertising, and the fact that any form of marketing, in my opinion, can be effective if done right. And so, I'm of a generation where a lot of what we do is online. And so I'm obviously more, I have an affinity towards social media and advertising there, brand building there, generating engagement and curiosity in what we're doing via those platforms. But, I'll go out to my mailbox and get one of those, like envelopes where it's got like 50 little flyers in it of all the different businesses around the area that are advertising. And I'll just kind of sift through. I'm like, oh, what kind of coupons are in here, And there's another junk removal company that does, is a competitor to us that has one of those in there. And I always see it. And I'm like, this is interesting because I don't, maybe it's just interesting to me because I'm a junk removal business owner, but I have to imagine that somebody's sifting through that. Because a lot of our market is educating the customer, and not everybody knows that a junk removal service exists. And so when somebody sees that, it's to me, that's kind of a non-invasive way of just letting you know that they're here. But beyond that, another example for me is when I moved in this house earlier this year, I was looking for potentially using somebody to take care of my lawn care. And I was like, I'm lost here. I could go around to the neighbors and ask who they use. That's obviously probably a natural way to do it. Meet the neighbors, get to know, the different people around. But I got hit with one of those, just mailers, and just the way that it was written, right? It looked like this guy actually hand wrote it, and whether he did or not doesn't make a difference to me. But the message in it was very, like, you could tell it was not, it wasn't cookie cutter. It wasn't coming from a big old, spam list. I mean, it likely was. But the feeling that I got as the consumer reading that, and the fact that it was right place, right time, made a difference for me. And I think it's interesting to note that, because again, I'm of a certain generation where we have an affinity towards social media and all that stuff, but that type of mailer actually worked on me. And now he's the guy that I use to take care of my lawn. So it's just an interesting thing to note. When you leave this podcast today, Eric, and you go about your day, interesting question here, but what is one headache that you're dealing with right now in your business that you're like racking your brain around? You'll go to sleep tonight and be like, man, I got to solve for this, or I'm dealing with a bad franchisee, or I've got this going on. What's one thing that you're dealing with today that's just a headache for you?
I think we are at the point, my wife and I found the company. We both work here. And we're at a point where, as you know, most people start their business, they're doing it right. So I still do deals, even as low as we are. Mm. But I'm also getting to a point where the franchise is demanding me full time. Mm. So I have a challenge between still working with customers and becoming a franchise leader. I have to do both, which makes for long days. And so I have to be able to let go of certain things. Yeah. Bring the right people in. And the biggest thing is, one of our, I guess, trusted advisor told us, and that's the hard thing to do. And I think that's a hard thing to do for any leaders, but that's one of the best pieces of advice I've probably gotten in the last 18 months is you have to let them fail in order to be successful. Because as franchise or business owners, leaders, they're going to about to wreck the car. What do? You push them over, you take the car, you put them back on the road, and you hand them back the steering wheel. Whew. Avoided that. Now, I'm not saying let him wreck your company to the point you shut it down, but people will make mistakes. Let them make the mistakes, because they will learn from that mistake, and then they will be a better leader or manager for your business. So I think that's the hard part right now to struggle with, is to find the right people to be able to hand off some of the things I've been doing for so long. Yeah. And that's not easy for my wife and I to do, because we've done it for so long. We know how to do it with our eyes closed. Yeah. But I need to let go of that. And we're bringing the right people. We're doing really well at it, but it's not easy sometimes to accept that.
Yeah, I know that's tough. Even in my business, that we're a single location, I'm very much that hands-on. Like, I don't necessarily believe that I can do everything better than anybody else. I know that my skill set lacks compared to other people that I can bring in, but it's just that control factor of, wanting to be in the business, and, the whole cliche term of you need to start working on your business rather than in it. It's difficult to pull, to take your hands off of certain areas that, are very significant to the business. For us, something like inbound calls from customers, do you outsource that to a call center? Do you build it out in house? Do you just continue to take the calls yourself because you don't think anybody else can talk to a customer as good as you can as a business owner? I mean, some of that's true, but at some point you have to kind of let that go and still keep a close eye on it, but have that, function be in the hands of somebody else so you can go and strategically build the company, which I think is very true. We'll end it with this, Eric. We always like to ask if you could go back to your younger days, whenever that was, when you first got into franchising, first got in the restaurant business, first getting out of school, whatever the case may be, and you could do anything differently, what would that be for you?
Oh man, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I would say, I think one of my weaknesses always been, as I get older, I get better at it, but being patient's always been something that has never come easy to me. I like to work hard and get results. And I would probably say, probably what we just talked about really is being probably, bring people in maybe a little earlier to do certain things instead of us doing everything. Because as an entrepreneur, you can do everything well.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best, like you said, but you know how to do everything well. You know how good it's going to be, and it's going to be fine versus what you don't know. But I think, and of course, there's good and bad because I got to spend money, bring that person in, and this and that and the other. But you need to invest in a business if you want to eventually have a business. A good friend of mine actually wrote a couple of books about that. Was how you are in your business. If you're everything in your business, it's not a sellable business, right?
Yeah.
I can't sell myself. But if I have management people doing things for me and I'm doing, this 20% and 80% of it is my team working with me, then you have a sellable business. And then that's the thing. When you want to create wealth for your franchisees down the road, you need to create something that's either sellable or transferable. And that's one thing that a lot of franchisors fail to plan for. We always, at our annual conference, we always tell our franchisees, we always have a session about generational wealth and how to work on that and brainstorm about, I just had a franchisee. I was really surprised. My first franchisee, 13 years old, and decided to retire, but he did not sell his business.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. And he had a team. So there's things that I think you need to make sure you work with your team to help them preparing that transfer. And that starts actually when you start your business, not when, okay, I'm going to retire, Davis, and, I'm in 9 years of my agreement. I'm not going to renew with you. I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
And, I want to sell it, but you didn't plan for that. So I think that's very important to help people with that part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, amazing points here, Eric, throughout the episode. Certainly appreciate it. We're obviously in the home services space. You're in more of in the restaurant, and kind of obviously brick and mortar is a lot different than home service based businesses. But so many things just from a franchisor and a franchisee and just business ownership perspective that I think the audience will really value here. Folks, if you want folks to find you, where can they find you? How do they reach out to Eric?
Sure. A couple easy things. Of course, you go to WeSellRestaurants.com. That's our website. Yeah. If you want to send me an email, you have questions, we're always open to answer and help other young entrepreneurs and franchisors. And you can email me at sales, SALES, at WeSellRestaurants.com.
Perfect.
And we're always happy to help other entrepreneurs and franchisors. I think franchising is a very giving community, and we should all be happy to be part of it. And then franchises and franchisors are very unique people because we really help each other, not try to hurt each other, which is very unique compared to the corporate world that we discussed earlier.
Yeah. Well, Eric, thank you again. I'm sure we'll certainly keep in touch, and we appreciate all the insights.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks.